Hello, namaste. My name is Suzanne Bernert and welcome to my podcast. Today I'm back with Anish and I'm back after a year. Everybody who knows what I went through knows that I took a break. Now I'm back and I'm very excited to have Anish back on the show. He's an architect and he's very well versed in history. And we had a common discussion on Veer Savarkar, and it was a very interesting discussion. I wanted to actually put it on the platform because I was thinking this is a very good topic. We should talk about it. And who better to talk to than you? Because you went to Kalapani, you have studied this topic, this person in depth, and I want to like pick your brains.
Namaste. Thank you, ma'am, for inviting me again on your show. It's great to be back and it's great to see you. Uh, Again, with the podcast, it's always great to interact with the audience also. Yes, Veer Savarkar is very close to me, or as his name goes, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. I probably began studying him back in 2018 and 19. So it actually begins with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I was a big fan of him. And, as a young guy, I was inspired by him. He's a Krantikari, a revolutionary, everything which one can look up to. And I just realized that there was one person whom Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose really idealized. It was Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. And I got very curious about it, that what's actually about this man, because sadly we haven't studied much about him in our Indian school history books and in our history classes. So I got curious and I began researching. I mean, I knew a bit and pieces because now we have the social media, we have the YouTube, and you have the information explosion everywhere. But uh, I think everyone are quite curious of why Savarkar, even after 75 years, finds himself in amid a political discussion in TV news channels often. And I think that's because he's a person whom we should all have studied in our history books, yet we did not. And then there are a lot of misconceptions about him, uh, sometimes a lot of misinformation about him. Then there's sort of stereotypes, dogmas attached to it. And this is why I thought now I should get myself into the subject and start studying him further.
That is a very long time to study on one person from 2018 to now, because I think a generalized awakening of India or Bhartiyas has happened more in 2020. Like when people had the time, they were sitting at home, they had time to like think about things in the COVID time. So I saw a lot of people suddenly being more interested in what's going on around them, what happened in their history, what's going on in their future. So 2018 is quite the time to start this. And so, what were your findings? What were your findings, especially in the context of how it's being taught in history classes?
So interestingly, I have not found his name, or at least I don't remember studying Savarkar back in my school at all. So I was studying in the CBSE school. CBSE schools are the central board schools, secondary education schools by the government of India. I mean, that at least the curriculum is decided by the government of India. We all read NCRT textbooks, which are rightly under the central government. And I don't think Savarkar is mentioned anywhere. If in case he is, then at least he wasn't mentioned in lens, so that I had to at least study him to pass my exams, because if I had studied him to pass my exams, I would be knowing him. That means that we were probably not taught about him, or his name was just given just somewhere in the corner of the book, even if he was mentioned somewhere.
So the others like Subhash Chandra Bose and Ambedkar, they were more highlighted in this.
I think it's M.K. Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and Jawaharlal Nehru, the great Chacha Nehru, who finds himself in the center of the narrative. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and B.R. Ambedkar are also not very much highlighted, but at least they have been honored in a decent way, that they do find their name mentioned in the side columns of the history books. And we do still try to revise the history and learn about why Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is important, and the famous slogan "Mujhe tum log mujhe sar doge, main aapko azadi dunga," which means that you sacrifice for the nation and I'll get the freedom. At least this was something which this was a skit which often goes in Indian schools, where children will play the role of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and it's not just one school, but it happens in almost every school. But
Okay.
sadly, Savarkar's name goes missing out of every curriculum or every school. We don't mention him in the school books, or we don't even try to make a skit which includes a character called Savarkar.
Okay, so that brings me right to that the movie that released this year, done and produced and directed by Randeep Huda, and this has brought a fresh interest. This has brought a lot of people. I had conversations with people about it who were saying, "I didn't know this. I needed this movie to know about things." And as you know, the history in the movie, do you think the movie, I mean, and it's always difficult for a movie to do justice, but do you think this was as accurate as possible? Because I had some issues with it being not from India, that I had to actually I watched it in three parts and I had to use Google and Wikipedia and everything to understand who's actually being shown on screen as well. What I find is a little sad because it's a blockage to just showing it abroad. Like this movie would be amazing to be shown outside of India, shown to other countries, to other people. But I think it might be a little difficult because I loved the middle and the ending, but I found the beginning a little clunky and a little hard to get into it.
That's true. I think it's a common experience for everyone who has probably not studied about Savarkar. And to be honest, 99.99% of the people haven't studied Savarkar because we are not taught about Savarkar. One major thing is that, yes, I do remember I was back in Michigan when the movie released, and I was quite frustrated because I couldn't watch it. It didn't
I
release
remember
there.
that.
And
I
then,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I just had to get happy watching the trailer 4 5 times. I just repeated it, and I was really excited to watch it. Luckily, I came in the month of May in India, and I found the last show, which was still running in the theater, and I was the only person who was in the theater watching the movie because
Oh,
sadly the movie didn't do very well in the box office out of some reasons, but the movie is a blockbuster still because it's a masterpiece piece, be the actors, be the direction, be the screenplay, be the background music, the theme, the film scoring. Everything is fantastic. Anybody who has studied Savarkar knows that Randeep Huda has done justice with the movie. He has done
mm,
justice to the historical narrative in the script. Yes, it's quite difficult to mention everything about one's life
yeah.
in one single movie. You can't do it. So he had to
Mm,
introduce a bit of drama here and there to, quickly go through certain periods of his life. Nevertheless, I still feel that he has done a justice because I don't see that there's any scene in the movie which probably was factually wrong. Although there were certain scenes where probably, a person like me would have felt that, yes, maybe you could have included a bit more. Like, for example, there's this example in the movie when Veer Savarkar, he's in London. He writes this book called India's First Independence War. So that was
yeah.
basically him giving an Indian twist, an Indian narrative to 1857 revolt. So till the time when Savarkar had not written that book, the narrative was that it was just a revolt by some sepoys working in the British Army, and then some of these princely states, the kings, had their own selfish political interest due to the doctrine of lapse sort of policies which the British had introduced. Although Savarkar ended up rejecting that narrative, and he established a new narrative that no, nationalism, patriotism, the freedom movement, the complete freedom, that's the complete Swaraj, and the love for the motherland, the nation, was central to the revolt. And because of that, the movie was not merely a mutiny. I mean, 1857 revolt was not merely a mutiny, but it was actually the first war of independence, which triggered the Britishers a lot. And interestingly, he writes this book in London, and somehow they were finding out, where you can get this book printed. because you need a printing press. You couldn't exactly print in London because we are at the heart of the British Empire. So they smuggled it and they took it to France. No, first they took it to Pune, to India, and his elder brother, who was trying to print the book, got caught by the Britishers, and
Oh,
they sent the book back. And then the book was again smuggled. It was taken to Paris. The British got to know, they were investigating, and they were like in a high alert mode that this is what Savarkar has been doing. They were spying upon Savarkar, and they failed to print this book in France also. Then they went to Germany. They couldn't do it again. In Germany, they failed. I think finally it got printed in Belgium. uh, the book was printed in Belgium, and then it was smuggled to India, and that's where the founder of Abhinav Bharat, the leader of Abhinav Bharat, which was Baba Rao Savarkar, the elder brother of Veer Savarkar, he started distributing this book everywhere. And when British got to know that this is what Abhinav Bharat had been doing, and uh, this is what his elder brother, Veer Savarkar's elder brother, is capable of doing, they sentenced him to the Kalapani, or the cellular jail in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So it was technically his elder brother who got into Kalapani before Vinayak Savarkar.
yeah, that explains that scene later where they are just suddenly see each other and they're not realizing, like the elder brother was like hanging on to the hope that Savarkar, his brother, is gonna like he's out there, he's fighting, and then they see each other in jail. I mean, the mental, physical, emotional torture that everybody went through who was there, and the complete disregard of political prisoners being treated in a different way. I mean, there's so many things in this movie that I never heard of, I never knew about, and also the just by being who he was, how he was like. I don't know if that is accurate, but the way he was influencing the Britishers who were holding him, that they started doubting what they're doing themselves. If that is accurate, then just imagine what kind of an aura he must have had, what kind of impact he must have had on people around him by just existing and being who he was. So nothing was breaking this man. It's unbelievable to look at the struggle, and I can just imagine what the actor also went through, being an actor myself. So it must have been tremendously difficult to shoot these scenes, tremendously difficult to make this movie. And any like that's why I find it so important. I would have found it so important to shoot this kind of a movie, especially to Europeans who have this whole misconcept about what's happening in India, what is India, where's India coming from, what kind of struggles it was having to become what it is right now. Because there is always this little bit of a like snooty attitude, this kind of like, who are you people? And if they could see how much, if an average person would be able to see how much this country was struggling to get where they are, then they would maybe understand why people stand up when the national anthem is being played. I had this discussion with somebody the other day, and they were like, no, I don't want to be forced to stand up if the national anthem is being played. I said, to this day, people are losing their lives to defend these borders. To this day, people are grateful for everybody who keeps them safe. So just standing up for the national anthem is just respect for your own motherland. So to come back to Savarkar, you visited Kalapani, and it disturbed you quite a lot, if I got that right from your Insta stories. Anybody who's interested, by the way, the Perspective Enigma is his Instagram handle, and please have a look at it because he has an amazing array, an amazing collection of his experiences, and a very interesting view, a view I haven't seen yet. So if you want to like experience something that blows your mind, go and check that out, the Perspective Enigma. To come back to that, so you visited Kalapani and you came out quite disturbed, and that was before the movie.
Yes. Uh, so now I'm quite speechless because we have come to Kalapani. Everything you read, everything you watch just breaks away once you walk into the area. I mean, there's so much of negativity. It just feels so haunted. I ended up publishing an article for Organizer back in 2021, I believe. 22, yeah. It was about Veer Savarkar's life story and how he was going through in Kalapani. So I had mentioned details about it. Although it's easier to write about this and actually go there and experience it. I mean, it breaks you. And luckily, the guide we had over there, he was very passionate about it. He was passionately explaining about their revolutionaries and their struggle in Kalapani. It was worse than death. It was literally worse than death. Anybody would have begged uh, the British to just shoot them point blank than actually live in Kalapani. It's horrible. I mean, the food you had to eat, the food literally had bombs in it. It was rotten. They used to serve rotten food. There used to be no washrooms in the cells, and Savarkar was literally confined to these solitary cells for misbehavior by the British, and he had to go through it. So Savarkar got the special of the special treatment. By special, I mean he got the worst treatment in Kalapani. So what the average person was going through in Kalapani, Savarkar was going through 10 times of what an average person was going through, because Savarkar was always in the mood of revolt. He was never ready to comply with the British. He was never ready to surrender his rights. He was a barrister, he was a lawyer, he studied law in London, and he had his pride. He said that, what do you think of me? I mean, I'm not just anyone. I've studied the law, but there was obviously a racist angle to it, that you're a brown person. What are you? Are you going to teach us the law? We are the ones who have given you the law. So the attitude that we are the lawgiver, and you study our law and you try to teach us our law. And
Mm.
interestingly, one more thing which uh, people don't talk about much, although the movie shows, uh, not in details, but is that the prison guard was an Afghan. And it was not just the one prison guard who was an Afghan. Almost every prison guard within the cellular jail were Afghans. They were Pathans. Now, British purposefully kept
Oh.
Afghans as the guard there because they knew if they would have kept Indian in the service there, then you have the sympathy for each other. So that sympathy can be destructive for the British. And Indians and Afghans have had this conflict going on for a very long time. And then there's a religious angle to it, religious extremism to it. Afghans have invaded Bharat multiple times. They've had pure radical agenda many a times, where they broke our temples, they would take women as slaves, and the Maratha Empire had wars with Afghans. The Durrani, in fact, Ahmad Shah Durrani was the main person against whom the Third Battle of Panipat happened. So there's whole history to it, and British purposefully kept Afghans, and to make things worse, Afghans were also forcefully converting the Indian prisoners within the prison. So you had to accept the religion of the prison guard
The
in
food.
order to accept the food. Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I saw that scene, but I wasn't aware of the Afghan angle because, see, that is another thing that even if I would have Googled it, I wouldn't have known what to Google for. So even if I'm researching some stuff, some information is out of my bounds because I would need somebody to like guide me and teach me. So just by watching the movie, so this is a tremendous, tremendous story and tremendous. The casting was also very well done. I found that many a times in dramas that depict that era and you have Britishers in it and they tend to just make them this one color. They're just the baddies. And then they just make them be loud and aggressive and stuff. Here you had nuances. You had like the coloring was like in different layers. Yeah? You had a lot of these like the what was his name, Dobbs, the
hmm,
guy who was running Kalapani. He had a
uh,
character graph as well.
right, yeah, yeah.
So that made it even more impactful. Sometimes I feel like Indian filmmakers are missing out on it by just coloring a negative character just in one color. Here you had like nuances, you had different styles, and you had different styles of acting as well of the people who portrayed British characters. So I absolutely appreciated that fact because it made the movie even better. Sometimes I feel like there's a distinct gap between that, and that was something that I really really liked about it.
Right. I think they humanized David Barry in it, who was the head of the cellular prison in Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
No, I'm so bad with
Yeah,
names.
yeah. So actually, David Barry. It's not just the case with David Barry. In fact, we when we start reading about multiple British colonialists who came to India and then they were serving in high ranks in the government, and when they went back to London, a lot of them actually went through depression for what they were doing over here. So that human aspect comes that by the end of the day that you have done something very wrong, something very bad. In fact, I can't remember. I think it was Robert Clive who was the governor of Bengal. I think it was Robert Clive, maybe. I'm not sure. When he went back to London after he colonized the whole of Bengal, because Bengal was the first region to get colonized by the British in India. When he went back to London, he got into depression and he committed suicide later. He committed
Uh,
suicide because he realized that something awful and horrible had been done by him.
yeah.
So, yeah,
So the incarceration of Veer Savarkar, I'm wondering how much that had any like what we discussed just now is post-traumatic stress syndrome. Now, when people are coming out of horrible situations and they have an after effect, they didn't show anything in the movie of such. I was wondering if he had any like after effects of that time, because if you go through something like this, I mean, they showed this one scene where when good food was put in front of him, that he had to run out of the room and started crying. Yeah, that was beautifully depicted, and that was also very necessary to show that. But do you think that some people are just born to be the way they are? That he just came into this world to do this one job. His soul was destined to be this,
I think so.
just to go through this and
I
be
think
so
so.
strong. That he never. I mean, it didn't show like that, but there could have been instances where he could have just folded up and said, "Okay, forget it. I'm out of here. Why am I doing that if nobody's even acknowledging it or knowing that I'm doing it?"
I think uh, we can get into his childhood for that. So, when he was a kid, he was living nearby a district of Nashik, and a plague had broken down, and the British officer who was in charge there was very brutal in nature. Whenever they found out that plague had hit a family, they would isolate them all and they would take them to camps away from their homes. They would take their women and take them as slaves, and they did atrocities. And watching this, what was happening in the society, there were three Chapekar brothers. I mean, their surname is Chapekar, and they were revolutionaries. They picked up arms, they picked up guns, and they ended up shooting the plague officer of that region. That inspired Vinayak Savarkar a lot. His mother died due to cholera quite early, and his father was doing the service. I mean, he was so his father used to volunteer. His so all these people who were being thrown into the pit after they died due to the plague weren't even cremated. And in Indian culture and Hindu culture, being cremation is one of the most important factor. So he risked his own life, Savarkar's father, and he used to go and cremate the people, do puja and everything, the last rituals which are required.
Wow.
And he ended up dying doing that noble cause because he himself got eaten by the plague. So I think his
Yeah,
father,
that was a very impactful scene in the movie as well, where he said, "No matter if I beg you, if I ask for you, if I cry out, don't come." So there were so
Exactly.
many scenes in this movie. I think one of the other reasons I was only able to watch it in bits and parts was how the sheer mass of what all happened, how horrible these many things were, and you're just watching it on screen. You're not even like, you, it is a lot. The movie is a lot, let's put it like that. And it's based on a life. So you can't even imagine what that person went through in life and what people around him went through in life, like his wife.
Hmm.
That's being touched on,
Exactly.
but it's not like that. You can make probably a whole movie on the whole, like whatever happened to the family alone around him, because if you had that last name, people knew who you were, and there must have
Hmm.
been repercussions for that.
Hmm. Yes, in fact, there's a scene within the movie where the younger brother of Savarkar says that, because my last name is Savarkar, nobody comes to my clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I was saying, when he was, I think, hardly 14 years old, he took a vow in front of his Kul Devi, uh, the deity of his lineage, that, he will either annihilate the British or he will die for the cause. So I think once one takes a vow in front of their Kul Devi or a Kul Devta, uh, then you have an impact, because now you've literally made a promise with the God, with the divine, and you are in a contract with them that, I have to free my motherland. And somewhere, um, Savarkar keeps saying that, my mother might have died, but I have another mother to serve. That's Bharat Mata. That's my motherland. So
Hmm.
I think that uh, drove him throughout his life, even when
Hmm.
people were against him.
And it's a hard hitting movie, and there's so many things to learn from it. I think if anybody wants to see it, they have to watch it 2 3 times. And would you go back to Kalapani? Do you have the guts to visit it one more time, or are you saying, okay, no, I can't handle this. I can't handle this more.
No, I can. I can. Um, and in fact, I visited Kalapani with my family, um, and my mother was also there. She was listening to what the guide was saying. Um, I mean, there was a crowd of like 20, 25 people. We were a batch, and he was guiding this batch in the prison complex, and he was recounting the story. By the end, and I've got to give credit to the guide who was explaining to us very passionately. In fact, one of my other friends went to Kalapani too, and he was guided by the same person, and he was also appreciating him. The way he explains things, everybody got emotional, and my mom broke into tears. She literally
Oh.
began crying. And the next thing I saw was that I didn't wanted to talk with anyone all of a sudden. I just wanted to roam around in the corridors of the prison and feel what the man must have felt. And I do personally believe that when you go to these places, I mean, there is some sort of negative energy, because so many
Yeah, it
bad
is.
things have
I
happened.
don't want to like equate it with the concentration camps that we are having, like the historic places that have seen a lot of bloodshed, have seen a lot of bad energy that it just clings to the place. And so I can completely understand what it is to walk through history and how it affects you, how you come out, and you just like shaken by it, just basically shaken by it. So, do you think that in the future there will be a time when in history books he's going to get the place that he deserves? Do you think movies like this, people writing books about him, that this is going to have the effect that it's pushing towards that? Because, I mean, government can do only so much, and it's like from all the sides, old British laws, then all the education system. There are so many things that have been left over and are influencing to this day, and it's a huge task to understand what to get rid of, what to keep, what is this, what is that.
I think books and movies definitely does do their part, but we need to get Savarkar in our mainstream school textbooks, because by the time a child grows up, they have been already fed so much of lies about the man that they are no longer open minded to actually study what the man really is. Like, for example, it's difficult to malign a person when you read about them. It's easier to malign a person when you don't read about them, because you're totally
Mm.
blank about them. And
Mm.
this is what has been happening. Like, for example, there's a very famous opposition leader in India. He calls him uh, Mafi Veer Savarkar. Mafi Veer means like the one who wrote the uh, the sorry letters to the British to
Yeah.
get out of Kalapani. And
Mm.
nobody actually looks at the fact that even after when Savarkar came out of the prison, he was still in the Ratnagiri jail for 3 years, and then he was in the house arrest for 13 years in Ratnagiri. And
Yeah.
even when he got freed out of the house arrest back in 1936, a lot of restrictions were put on him, that you can't join any political party, or you can't associate yourself with any society, and so on and so forth. So if he was really a collaborator, would the British have put so many restrictions on him? They clearly fear the man. I mean, they knew that he's still not someone to be trusted.
Yeah, the problem is in that respect is that you and I, we know this, probably our viewers know a lot of this as well. It's just that the new generation that is coming up is being, you know, how do you know who says what in what context and why? And who goes really out and Googles or studies or looks at Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia is pretty straightforward in that there's nothing, I didn't see anything that was not mashing with the movie. And you say the movie is bang on. So, only always mistrusting Wikipedia is also not a good thing because sometimes you get good information out of it. And it's really necessary to reach the youngsters, the young generation, the people who are just forming their opinions, because if it can shape the whole way how our country is moving ahead. And this nitpicking, taking a topic and just twisting it into a certain way so it is suiting your agenda, that we all know is happening.
As I was saying, that the movie actually goes into showing Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's perspective also. The actor who's playing the character of Gandhi is Rajesh Khera, and I must appreciate how Randeep Hooda actually got an actor to play that role, pull out that role so well, because Gandhi's character itself is quite nuanced in a way. I mean, you can see where the tone of Gandhi, the way it's dipping and then it's rising, and in a way he's saying that why we must help the British during the World War, so they help us, and we can see. I mean, any intelligent person can understand how they are trying to explain Gandhi to everyone else, like what kind of character, what kind of a man he is. So I feel the actor has done a phenomenal job in that. And even in the scene when they show that Gandhi got assassinated by Nathuram Godse, who was once affiliated with Hindu Mahasabha and RSS. Although he left Hindu Mahasabha and RSS prior to assassinating him, they specifically showed the scene where Savarkar says that I don't hate Gandhi, I hate the concept of non-violence. He's making it clear that I have nothing against anybody personally. I'm against an ideology. I'm against a thought process. And
Mm.
even when Gandhi dies, Savarkar was mourning. He was literally saying that this is wrong. Whatever has happened is wrong.
And
And
they picked him up again, and they picked him up again, even though they were never at like it's unbelievable. Any kind of excuse they were trying to get him arrested and thrown back into jail. What kind of a threat he was, if you think about it then. So you have mentioned a point when we were chatting about what is going to come into this chat. Indira Gandhi honored Savarkar, Congress politics over the man.
yeah. So back in 1980, in her during her second term, I believe, It was when she actually received a letter from a Savarkar society that, we want to celebrate this day for Savarkar's birthday and so on and so forth. And Indira Gandhi actually replied back to them saying that Veer Savarkar is a nationalist, the son of the soil. He's the son of the motherland. His service to the nation is remembered by us, and everyone should strive to be like him. It goes as a blow on the face of uh, her grandson, who is now spreading hatred against the same man who's honored by Indira Gandhi. Interestingly.
That is a yeah. That a lot of contradictions are happening. That so what what to say about that? So another thing that you said on casteism, like I saw that in the movie as well, that he was saying that it doesn't matter what religion, background, caste, whatever you are from, that you're basically the whole concept of Hindutva is when you are identifying yourself with any piece of land or anything that is Bharat, then you are a Hindu. So that is such a, I hope I got it right.
Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
such a open, inclusive, wonderful concept if you think about it. Yeah, that you by that you identify, because I just had a discussion with somebody on Twitter who said you can't convert to being a Hindu, you can't
Mhm.
become a Hindu, you can't do that, and there's no certificate for it. But then you hear him and you're like, wait a second. So if I identify with any piece of land, if I say Bharat Mata ki Jai and I feel like this is my home, then I am a Hindu, according to
Mhm.
Savarkar. So that is a very interesting piece that, that I discovered the other day, and I just loved it. And the temple he built, no? When they were saying they can't come inside, then he said, okay, I'm going to build you another temple.
Siddhivinayak temple, yes. So they weren't ready to give them admission in temple because they said, "Oh no, you're going to purify the place and stuff." And he said that I'm going to construct a Siddhivinayak temple because Maharashtra and the Marathi people actually have a lot of belief on Lord Ganesh, and hence he chose that temple, and that's where him and his wife Yumna Bai used to even cook food and then serve to everyone else who were needy, and they used to feed them. They used to feed the children of the oppressed community by their own hands. Interestingly, there's a very interesting debate between Gandhi and Savarkar, which is even shown in the movie, related to Harijans, where Gandhi says that I'm going to coin the word Harijan, which literally means the people of the Lord, the people of the God. It is in order to wash out the term Dalit, which was actually coined by the British. Now, a lot of people think that Dalit, the term for that particular caste, is actually in the Hindu scriptures. Interestingly, there's no term such as Dalit in Vedas or in Upanishads or in any of the Hindu scriptures. We have no word like that. That word became quite popular during the colonial times, and Gandhi wanted to wash that word out by replacing it with the word called Harijan, although Savarkar opposed it because he was of an opinion that you call them Harijan, you call them whatever, you're still segregating. You're just giving another term to it. Okay, it sounds nice, but then you're still giving a term to it. So he was of an opinion that why don't we just start encouraging intercaste marriages? So, people forget which caste they belong to, and 3, 4 generations down the line, just people will be just the Hindus. That's it. And his idea of
And this
Hindu
is a
was also
long
quite,
this
yeah.
is a long war that he's been fighting, because if you think about it, that was like we're talking about 1920, 26, 27, something like that. And to this day, it's still being used as a weapon. It's still being used as something, and people are still not ready to let it go, even though it was superimposed by the Portuguese and British, because casta is a Portuguese word. And as far as I know, the whole system was implemented because they couldn't understand how all these people can live in harmony with each other without having any kind of like a special like category. How can you just live? How can you just live in harmony like that? It was a concept for the British and for people who were coming, trying to take everything away from here, just to make sense of this country. Superstitions in India. Savarkar's warned superstitions in India.
hmm Savarkar was interestingly against a lot of superstitions. Like, for example, A superstition which became quite prevalent during the medieval period amongst the Hindu community was that if you get into seafaring, that is, if you travel out of India by
Okay.
ship, you're going to lose your caste, you're going to lose your religion. In fact,
Oh,
this superstition ended up backfiring, obviously, on us because it made us weaker. I mean, our navy was just disbanded. It was, I think, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, after centuries later, who revived the Indian Navy. He said that we're going to break this superstition part. And then Savarkar re-emphasized on it. So basically, when he was going to London, his wife was of an opinion that he's going to lose his caste
yeah,
and religion by going. And Savarkar said, no, this is not logical. We have to go out. I will go out. I will accomplish my goals, and we'll come back. Hindus are not bound to any, uh, a restrictive sort of an ideology. I mean, you have to go out and explore the world, and this is what Savarkar stood for. Interestingly, in the movie, also we observe there's a scene where he says, "Apne bachche ko tika lagwana hai," that get him vaccinated. Nothing wrong happens from vaccination. He advocated
yeah.
for vaccination. Interestingly.
So he was very forward thinking and like still steeped in the roots, just like bringing everything together, what actually people think. If you're in that direction, if you're very like traditional, then you can't be fast forward, and you can't be looking to the future and to science as well. What is an interesting contradiction, but that's humanity for you. Everything can happen, everything can come together. You have mentioned something, reference from the Crown series. What was the reference from the Crown? I saw the Crown. I saw Savarkar. What was that? Please
So
enlighten me.
interesting. Yeah. So interestingly, in the first season of The Crown, the father of Queen Elizabeth II was when he was a king, he was actually sick. And I don't remember exactly the name of the disease he was going through. But yes, he was
Oh,
stammering and he used to puke blood out, and
stammering.
we
Yeah,
have seen that in the series. And interestingly, when they show the scene of the Royal Indian Navy mutiny in the movie, interestingly, that's a deleted chapter from the Indian history, which I'm very glad that Randeep Hooda ended up including in the movie. Because it's one of that missing puzzle which plays a key role in pushing the British out of India. And it has never been taught to us, just like how Savarkar was never taught to us. And in that context, they show a scene where, um, it was Prime Minister Attlee, the Prime Minister of UK, who was a great friend of Nehru. So just at that time, Winston Churchill ended up losing the elections, although he had won the World War II for the UK, but he ended up losing the elections. And Attlee had become the prime minister, and Attlee proposes the plan that we need to move out of India because we can no longer hold it. And in this, they were. I mean, I've got to give the credit to Randeep Hooda for researching that the king was quite sick, and they showed it in the movie. I mean, I think these small details matters a lot because
I
on
mean,
an
yeah,
average,
and they
nobody.
also showed that his speech becomes normal when he was smoking,
Mhm.
because there was this movie where I can't recall the name right now, where they showed the whole history, how somebody was coming trying to train him how to speak, and how that he was smoking at the time because one doctor was telling him it was relaxing, and that's why you can talk more freely when you're smoking. And that detail was actually shown in this movie now, and it was, yeah. I was wondering if you are referring to that or anything else. So it was like
Yeah.
amazing thing. You have anything else to add to this? Because this is a nice amount of time. We are hitting now 50 minutes of talking about the movie, talking about the man, talking about the story. I think you can talk a lot more about it, but I just wanted to just like round it up. Anything else you wanted to add in the end?
Yeah, I think I'll say that everyone else who um, are still spreading lies about Savarkar, or the ones who are not ready to accept Savarkar, are not just disrespecting Savarkar, but they are disrespecting this nation. They are disrespecting Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, because finally the term Veer was coined by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose when he reached the Kalapani, when he conquered the Kalapani. And they are disrespecting Bhagat Singh, who was inspired by the book written by Savarkar on 1857, First War of Independence. They are disrespecting Madan Lal Dhingra. They are disrespecting uh, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak. They are even disrespecting Gandhi. If you're thinking that, you're a Gandhian and hence you should reject Savarkar, then you're actually disrespecting him, because Gandhi ended up writing it himself that Savarkar is an asset for the nation. He must be freed from the Kalapani. If he comes out, he will be serving in the government and steer the country
Yeah.
ahead. So you're disrespecting everyone whom you claim to respect if you disrespect Savarkar, is my closing thought.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful end to the whole conversation, Anish. Thank you so much for giving your time. And I'm definitely, we're going to come up with another topic that interests both of us to talk about. And I'm looking forward to have you back on the chat. Thanks for everyone
Thank
to
you.
who has come by and watched this video. I hope you watched the whole one, not just a fraction of it. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you next time.
Thank you.